And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Oh, love letters. Oh, how sweet they are. I've saved some of them from across the years. You'll never see them. When I was initially showed love letter, which comes in this nice bag, which with the words love letter on it. But anyhow, when I was first shown this game, I was at Gen Con 2012, and it hadn't yet been produced, and they said, this is a 16-card game. And what? Really? There's not a lot of game that can be had in 16 cards. Well, we played it, and I was amazingly surprised and immediately wanted to play it again. Why was I so surprised? Well, let me show you the game. As I said, love letter is simply just 18 cards here, and these cards are numbered from 1 all the way up to 8. Basically, the number shows how close that person is to the princess. The princess isn't very close to her guards, while number 8 is the princess herself. And you can see that, the king, her father, is pretty close to her, but not as close as the countess is. And so you have these different cards. What you're going to do is you're going to shuffle this deck, and you're going to take one of these cards and get it out of the game. Unless you're playing with 2 players, then you'll throw out 2 cards. Everybody else is dealt 1 card. Now, on your turn, you'll have that 1 card. You will draw another card, and then on your turn, you will discard a card. Whenever you discard the card, you will take whatever effect that card says. So each of the cards has a different effect. So let's look at the different effects of the cards. The biggest one that you'll see is the guard, because there are 5 guards in the deck, so these will be the cards that show up the most often. In a guard, you simply name a non-guard card and choose another player. So I say, Bob, I think you have the prince. If he does have the prince in his hand, then he's out of the round. So otherwise, that's the end of that round. So if you think you know what someone has as a guard, you can call them out. A priest simply lets you look at someone else's hand. There's 2 of those in the deck. There's also 2 barons, where basically you compare hands with another player, and the player with the lower value is out of the round. So you should only do this if you think you have a higher card than someone else. Realize, of course, that when you do this and the other person is out of the round, then people know that you have a higher card than whatever card they've discarded. So there's some interesting things there. The handmaids, of which there's 2 of them. When you play that, no one can affect you with cards, so the beginning of your next turn. The prince, or Brad Pitt, you can pick someone and they will discard their hand and draw a new card. The king basically lets you trade hands with someone else. The countess, if you have this card and the king, you have to get rid of, or the prince, you have to get rid of a card. So if you discard this card, you're telling everybody else, there's a good chance I have the king and the prince. Of course, you might discard it just to make people think you have that. And then finally, there's the princess, a dangerous card to get, because if you discard the princess for any reason, you're out of this round. And then there's more of each of the other cards. Now, what's going to happen is players are going to go back and forth playing cards until one of 2 things happens. If everybody is out of the round except for one person, then that person takes a red cube. Basically, your letter got to the princess, and the more times she reads your letter, eventually she's going to fall in love with you, and the first person to get a number of these cubes is the winner of the game, and that depends how many players are playing. If there's multiple people left in a round, and the deck runs out, then everyone plays, anyone who's still in the round shows the card that's still in their hand, and the highest card is the one who gets this. So you're trying to save a high card for the end of the round. That's basically it. You just play rounds until one person gets enough of these red cubes showing the princess affection, then she marries you, and wedding bells and so on and so forth. Love Letter is the 4th game in the Tempest series. That's a series of games that AEG comes out where there's the same universe. In the first game, the queen, courtier, in the first game, the queen has been accused of high treason and she's arrested at the end of the game. Well, in this game, the princess is so sad that the queen has been arrested that you are trying to cheer up by writing her love letters. That's a little creepy. But anyhow, the game itself, as I said, when I first was introduced to it, I said, well, but it's a really interesting game because there's this back and forth in this very short amount of time trying to basically guess what other people have in their hands. I played it several times with 2 players, and it works with 2 players, and it's fun. But to me, it's much more fun with 3 or 4, because you're watching what everybody has. You're saying, okay, he just challenged that person and won, so he must have a high card in his hand. That person had a guard and asked if so-and-so had the princess, so that means they probably don't have the princess, but maybe they do, and they just said that to throw people off. So all that little, going on back and forth in your head, what does he have, what do they have? That's basically how the game works, and I think it works really well in that regard. It's a very short game. It's a very portable game, but I think amount of game per size of game, this is probably one of the best values game per size on the market. I'm very impressed with it. It's a fantastic little game, and so this is the second game of the series I've reviewed. There's 4 games, and the series is now 2 for 2. Courtier and this one are both excellent games. So the theme, is okay. It fits in this universe, but just as, basically people are showing up and you say, hey, let's quick play this game real quick. You have it in a restaurant. This is really a great portable game. You can play it at an airplane, all over the place, because it's simple. You would think, well, it's very easy. You just take a card and discard it. You have 2 choices. That's not a lot, but you would be surprised that how much more there is, especially with the back and forth as you're thinking, what do people have in their hands? All that from 16 cards.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.
Shut the door.